Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Neil Pickup here, the fat lad in the mother fluffing house. And it's part 2 of Leviathan, Richard Lupkes. An absolute honour and a pleasure to have this guy spend his time coming on here and talking to us about his incredible career. And if you didn't catch the first part of Richard's story, I'm going to put the link in the description. Please go back, check it out, because there is some real facts and stats and details in there about the original fibre of the sport of arm wrestling. Some real golden cuts in there. I mean, I learned a great deal. I've been in this game for 30 years, immersed up to my eyeballs. And speaking to Richard, I learned a great deal, not only about this man personally, but about the sport we all love. So please, it's in the description, guys. Go back, check it out. Richard, welcome back to the show. Absolutely awesome to have you on here, mate. And in the first part, we just got to sort of the late 70s. We were talking about sort of when you started to become dominant in your progression. And when we went off air after the first part, you mentioned a story with Scott Norton. And I'm sure people would love to hear about that.
Yeah, I think it was probably in the late 70s. Sioux Falls had another state tournament, but it wasn't run by Al. Or maybe it was run by Al. I can't remember for sure. But it was at Team Electronics. It was an electronics store, and it was outside. And they were giving away stereos. You could either have a car stereo or a home stereo for first place. So we went over there, and I entered my weight class, and I entered the super heavyweights also. Well, lo and behold, Scott Norton came from the cities, and so I won my weight class, and I met Scotty. Well, it wasn't in the finals because it was single elimination. And Scotty, had that big explosion off the start where he would just blow through everybody. And Scotty was probably weighing, Scott's probably well over 300, 350 maybe. He's a big boy.
He's a huge guy, wasn't
he? Yeah, big man. And I was still 220, probably 225 maybe. And I thought, well, if I could stop his hit, maybe I'd have a chance. And he exploded, and he moved me about 3-4 inches. And it's funny because the local newspaper over there's got a picture of his face when he was trying to beat me, and it kind of set off because I stopped him. I looked at him, and I just went and put him down, and man,
wow,
that really deflated his ego because, he was going to be one of the big up-and-coming superstars of arm wrestling, So
and went on to get, even now, people talk about Scott Norton because of that performance that he put in Over the Top, which I know we'll get to in this episode. But as you say, such a massive guy, went on to bigger things in wrestling career and so on and so on. But extraordinarily powerful individual. So for you to be sort of under 250, you were like 220 pounds around that time. That's a hell of a win. And that must have done your confidence must have gone through the roof, mate. After that one, was that the biggest man you faced at that time?
Oh, I'm sure. It was fun. I guess back then I can't say I really took it that serious. I was after, having a home stereo and a car stereo, I could get one of each. So that's what I was really working for. Otherwise, it was fun to beat him. But it was, I don't know, just happened. I got lucky, I guess.
And did you go on to win that event?
Yeah, I won my weight class, and then I won the supers. Yeah.
One key fact that Richard brought up, guys, in the first installment of this was that throughout his entire arm wrestling career, spanning 46 years, this man has never had table time on a regular basis at any point. That is, can you imagine that for the modern day arm wrestler? It's like the staple of everybody's progression. People talk so often about weight training is just supplementation. It doesn't really drive that core ability. It doesn't push your level forward. Imagine Richard Lupkes' level where it could have gone if he had regular table time. This man could have been the best of all time. Just absolutely remarkable. Richard, let's get back to your career, mate. We're into the 80s, and I know that in the 80s you went over to the World Championships and you started to travel further afield. We saw you abroad in Sweden at the World Championships. How did that come about, mate? You must have been taking arm wrestling far more seriously at that point.
Yeah, I was. The Worlds were going to be in Eskilstuna, Sweden that year, and you had to take first or second either at the stand-up nationals or the sit-down nationals. And I think I won both. I won the stand-up and the sit-downs, so I qualified. And the Worlds that year were sit-downs. That back then they would flip-flop every other year. Once it would be stand-up, next year sit-downs. So that year it just happened to be sit-downs, which was great for me. I like sit-downs. So we got to go over there. My folks went along, so it was that's probably. Well, I think that was the second time we flew. The first time we flew, that was back in '86. We went out to Vegas for that over-the-top thing. So that was a couple of years before that. Yeah.
Let's sort of dive in initially to the over-the-top story. And this is probably going to take the majority of this segment because I know I'll not be alone in being really, really keen to understand the whole experience. You said in part one that you didn't really know a great deal about this. There wasn't a lot of build-up, or you hadn't been competing often and frequently prior to Over the Top. Your friends saw a flyer, you were telling us, and that led you to this competition. You did a qualifier, won the qualifier, and then you went out for the Over the Top. At that point in time, when you arrived in Vegas to head over to the Hilton for the show, were you one of the favourites? Were you well known at that time, or were you sort of flying under the radar a bit?
I think, I don't think anybody really knew me. I mean, I beat some really good guys at the qualifier, in Chicago, which probably maybe raised a few eyebrows. But other than that, and if I remember right, I was in the truckers class, so you had to be under a certain weight. I'm trying to remember what the weight was. You had to be under, I don't know, 260, 250, 270 or something. So I know I had to lose weight to get in that because I was going to try and win the truck. That was a big prize back then. So, we went to Chicago for the qualifier, won that, and then we went to Vegas, and the only person that I was told that was super good at the time was this Ed Arnold. John Brzezink's name wasn't even brought up to me. So, I had heard of John before, but Ed Arnold, they said, was kind of the odds-on favorite to win that class, is what they had been told. So I figured that was the guy to try and beat. I remember going through the eliminations, I pulled Clay Rosenkrantz. He was, pretty well-known arm wrestler at that time, and there was a few others.
I mean, Cleve Dean was there, Gary Goodridge, Scott Norton, Ed Arnold, Johnny Walker.
Oh, the who's who of arm wrestlers were there, but I was in the truckers class, which I don't think had as many, huge names other than John Brezink and Ed Arnold. I mean, those two guys were very good arm wrestlers, but all them other big names were in the open classes.
Okay, so Gary didn't get he wasn't in the truckers, Goodridge.
No, he had to be in that I know of. I don't remember. I didn't pull Gary if he was in the truckers class, and I don't remember him. Like Scotty, he was in the super heavyweights with Cleve Dean, and there was a lot of big boys walking around there. I mean, that tournament was huge. It was just ridiculous. It
really was. It was. I mean, I attended that with my dad. Bloody long day. I mean, I ended up sleeping on my dad's knee, with my head on my dad's knee for some of that show. My first time abroad. Obviously, we'd been to the qualifiers here in the UK, and I was a baby, so I got a lot of notoriety for competing over here because I was sort of 13 years old, and did very well in the Manchester event. we went over there because there was a big boxing match on. If you recall, you may recall was it the weekend before or weekend after, but there was a big boxing match on that my dad wanted to see, so we did that, made a holiday of it. But I remember the Overtop event itself, which we were watching, they had all the bleachers up there and so on, but it was, I mean, you remember how late that thing went on? It was like,
it was, ridiculous. It what, 9 or 10 in the morning, and it ran, I mean, they run a tournament.
3 a.m. or something.
Stop and do some filming for the movie. And then people were getting hungry and they didn't want people to leave, so they actually brought food in. Remember that? They fed you right in the bleachers,
Yeah.
But I honestly think it was still going on like 6 or 7 the next morning.
It was nuts, wasn't it? Absolutely bananas.
It was, they had enough refs, they had enough tables, it was just a little bit unorganized, I mean, if they would have kept everybody busy, because all those tables, only half of them were being used, it seemed like at one time or another. I wasn't sure, I think there were just so many people, it was really hard to organize that whole outfit,
So in terms of I mean, at that point, as I say, I have no recollection of how the thing was run really, because I was just new to the sport, a kid just watching, and I was like, oh, there's a guy arm wrestling, there's a guy arm wrestling. Didn't really even think about the structure or the setup of the event. I was just, how big are these guys' biceps? And, it was all, that was it. It was just like a wow factor. But learned a little bit there from obviously the fact that you weren't in the same division as some of the other guys. Who were your hardest matches that day? I know you told us in episode 1 that it was your first ever meeting with John.
Yeah, I pulled, we got to the, quarterfinals where there's 4 people left.
Mm-hmm.
And,
the semis, that would have been, wouldn't it?
I had to go Ed Arnold, and me and Ed Arnold had a long match, and I finally beat him. But man, my arm felt like rubber after that. And then I had to go against John, and I just didn't have anything for John. He put me down right away, and then I had to go back up against Ed Arnold, and I lost to him pretty quickly too. So I ended up taking 3rd place, for the tournament. So yeah, and then John and Ed, man, they had some long matches. It was tough, but John, finally came out on top. So.
And John was small then. He was maybe 185 pounds around there, wasn't he? He was only little.
Yeah, he was not real big, but his arm made up for it.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, when did you experience any other hard matches in that competition, or were all your other rounds? How many rounds did you pull, Rich, in the over the top?
Oh boy, Neil,
roughly.
If I would say I remember pulling Clay, because the only reason he's stuck in my mind is he walked up there with these great big elevated shoes on, they were
the platforms.
Yeah, so I mean, it would just look so weird, and he was trying to climb my hand on the setup, and I finally told the ref, I says, dude, I just want a fair grip, I says, if he beats me, fine, but let's go for a fair grip. And Clay says, yep, no, that's fine. And then I beat him, pretty quickly. So, but boy, I don't know, I probably wrestled, I don't think it was that many times, maybe 4 or 5 times, 6 times, maybe. It wasn't that bad, and everything was fast, right up to Ed Arnold. Then it was, a long struggle. So,
I mean, that must have been a incredibly weird day from a competitive standpoint to be in the venue that long and only pull 5 or 6 times. You must have been sick as a parrot.
Yeah, you were wore out. I mean, I just felt wore out from sitting there. I was used to eating, quite often, and I would be sending the wife out to get food, and and then finally brought food in, and it was a bit of a circus, but it was still, probably one of the greatest tournaments ever put on. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Have you any other sort of enduring memories of other matches there? Did you sort of get an introduction to other people there that you perhaps didn't know about the sport with sort of staying on the fringes a little bit? Were you introduced to new guys, the sort of here and now of the sport, or the big names in the sports?
No, not really. I mean, we kind of kept to ourselves. I knew Scotty really good. We were friends. So I talked to Scotty in the lobby, and I mean, that guy looked incredible. You could tell he was ready. He was ready to pull. And then I got to meet Cleve Dean, and super nice guy. It was,
Wouldn't he?
It was funny because I went out in the hallway and Cleve was sitting out there right beside. They had a great big platform scale out there, and they were out there. And one of the guys says, "Come on, Cleve, I want you to step on this scale, see where you're at." So, and Cleve, was not getting around the best at that time. His weight, I think, was probably wearing on his bones finally, carrying that much weight around. But anyway, he stood on that, he stepped on that scale, and I watched that needle go around, and it ended up at 609. And that's what that man weighed at that day, was 609. I was standing right there when he weighed.
609 pounds.
When I shook hands with him, Neil, I thought I stuck my hand into a ball glove. His hands were so huge. In fact, he took his wedding ring off, and the guy dropped a 50-cent piece through his wedding ring. That's how big that finger was.
Yeah. You know what? I do a show on here called In the Presence of Greatness. We have various guys on. You need to come on that at some point, Rich. We had a few guys on the other day, one of whom was Levan Seganashvili. The Georgian Hulk, who's a lot of people believe is the very best in the world right now, and he's got freakishly big hands. And John Brezink was speaking about Levan not long back, and he said, "I met Levan, and you know what? His hand wasn't so impressive. I've seen bigger. Cleve Dean, and I instantly sort of that resonated with me because when I won my first world title, I pulled in the open class, and after I was speaking to Cleve. I knew Cleve before the event. We spoke at the event extensively. I was sat next to Cleve and was chatting through with him throughout the day. It was really interesting. I was sort of picking his brains in the same way I've been with you today, and it was a lovely guy. Cleve was like yourself, speak to anybody, just a lovely person, And after, I just asked him, Can we pull? Can we go over and do a little bit? And as you say, he couldn't move well, really, really struggled with his movement and so on. But we got up the table, got a couple of pictures and so on. But I couldn't arm wrestle him physically.
What do you grab?
I couldn't reach him, and he had his elbow at the back of the pad. He was coming down, and he was so big, I couldn't believe it. It was just not right.
Yeah, you had to meet the guy to really appreciate the size of the man. And like you said, super nice guy. You couldn't find a nice.
Yeah, he shared that with yourself, mate. Very, very, very similar persona. Very similar. Talk to anybody about anything all day. Very open. Very genuine. Nothing to hide. Great.
When Cleve was in his prime, they said he was a Georgia hog farmer, and like when he was, probably 400 or 500 pounds body weight, they said he could walk into any showroom, car dealership, and pick up the front end of any new car in the showroom. He was that strong. The guy was incredibly strong.
It's comedy, that, isn't it?
Crazy.
You tell people that, and most people are going to be like, "Come on."
No, I believe it too. Cleve was a brute.
The width, just the sheer mass of the guy, the width, it was just off the scale. You felt like a child sat next to your dad. It was,
I don't know where you buy clothes for the man. He must have wore like a 10X shirt.
It was lunatic.
The man was just so big. Yeah.
It's
he was a great guy to talk to. It was fun. It was fun to hang out with the dude.
Did you pull Cleve off it? Did you have much experience ever arm wrestling, Cleve?
Never pulled Cleve. I always thought maybe we would meet up, but, that was back in the day at the time when I felt I was probably at my best. Bobby Hopkins was right there, Cleve, but I never got to pull Cleve. Brad Silver was very good at the time.
Yeah.
Big Brad, Brad was like 6'9", 6'10".
Another guy who went on to wrestling fame. He went into WWF wrestling as well, didn't he? Brad Silver.
He did? Brad Silver?
Yeah, I believe so. What the hell was he called? He wrestled. Sure he wrestled. So he was another big dude. But, yeah, I didn't see him much. Only saw him a couple of times. But, yeah.
When I pulled him at the Nationals, then I spent a little time with him talking, and he was a corrections officer for some prison out there at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where do these guys all go?
Well, I think Brad passed away. I seen something a number of years ago about, I don't know what happened, but I think he passed away, a few years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
And I think Bobby passed away too, didn't he? Recently,
yes, he
not long ago. Bobby was, well, other than Gary Goodridge, Bobby was super strong. That man was very strong. I mean, you had to be on your game to beat him. And of course, Gary, first time I pulled Gary was out in Reno. And that had to be, it was probably 87. And, I didn't know Gary. He didn't know me. Well, he knew me because he had heard that I had beat Scott Norton. And I got to pull Gary earlier in the match, and I really wasn't, thinking too much of him. And man, he hit me so fast, I was on the pad before I even knew what happened, So, and then I finally woke up because, I think John was in our class too. So then I had to come back through the losers bracket, and I beat John, and then I beat Gary and ended up winning the tournament. But, yeah, Gary's hand really wasn't so big, and I don't even know if it was that strong, but his arm had so much power. It was just crazy. I don't know where he got that power from, but
it's quite weird, wasn't he, Gary? He didn't have a big hand, and not big wrists, or he didn't. Yeah, he was so much power in a hook, unbelievable power in a hook.
I tell you what, that guy was strong. Whew. Yeah,
and remarkably proficient with that small. I mean, you only have to look at his career. Obviously, got wins on Cleve.
Oh yeah,
the Yukon Jack famously, and you can't imagine how, because he didn't look like he was equipped to do it. But he had that high posting top roll style that he could really, and as you say, that massive explosivity.
Yeah, he was strong. He was a strong kid, man. I tell you what. Him and like I say, Bobby Hopkins too. Bobby was always very powerful,
Very thick, wasn't he, Bobby? Sort of like a square head, like a bread bit. Yeah.
He was, he played pro football for, who was it? Was it Tampa Bay for a while? As big as Bobby was, that guy could run like a deer. I mean, that guy was really a good athlete.
Yeah, he looked so powerful, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had the look of a real strength athlete. He just looked like he'd been carved out of Zeus's tooth.
I definitely would want him on my team, I tell you that.
Yeah, he was a rock, no doubt about it, mate. Yeah. So interesting to hear you talk about how many times did you pull with Goodridge?
Oh, let's see. I pulled Gary. That was 88 probably out there in Reno, and then we went back in 89. And I think I beat him there. And then Gary put on his own tournament up in, was it Toronto where he was from? He had his own tournament up there. So we went up there for that. And John
was from Barrie, Ontario, wasn't he, I think?
Oh, was it Barrie? Is that
think
by
so.
Ontario? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, it was in a bar up there, and we went to that tournament, and I beat Gary pretty fast up there. I don't know if he just let me beat him, or I doubt it. And then John was up there too, and I smashed John pretty quickly too. I was feeling really good. And then afterwards, we all went to a hotel room and played around on the table a little bit, and seeing what everybody had. So, Gary, the first time I pulled Gary, he beat me, and I was not prepared for the strength and speed that man had. It was incredible. So,
from speaking to you in past conversations and so on, you've got a winning record, haven't you, against Chom?
Yeah, I do. I got, it's kind of funny. I've got a winning record against John, against Travis, against Don Underwood. Who else?
And by the sounds of it, Goodridge.
I'm sorry?
And also Gary Goodridge, it would sound like.
Yeah. Yep. And I've got a winning record against Timmy Bresnan. I've got, and then there's some guys I've never been, that I never could beat. I've pulled Ron a couple times. Ron Bath, he's beat me both times. Who else have I pulled? There's a couple other guys that I thought I would have a chance, and I can't beat them, But that's all been recently. If I could have pulled them back, in the 80s, I think I could have performed a lot better,
I was going to say that the times that I've seen you pull Ron, he was closer to his peak, and also you had a long layoff, didn't you? A long layoff from the sport, and then came back to it. Let's get into that a bit, Richard. What was the reason for the layoff? Because you were out of the sport for how long? I mean, it was
probably from, let's see, we moved to Chicago in, what was it, 89 or 90, I think, because I was going to wrestle for WCW. So I started doing that. They had a camp over there I had to go to, and then I actually pulled one tournament over there. It was, I can't remember the name of it. John showed up, and I actually tore my rotor cuff against John, pulling him there. I had heard it in the gym, like a week before. I had tweaked it a little bit and doing shoulder presses, and I knew it was sore, but I didn't think it was that bad. And then I ended up pulling John, and it just messed it up. So otherwise, that was probably the last time I pulled, probably from around 91 till 2006. I just, I hit the weights. I spent a lot of time in a gym, and then just working. I was operations manager for a truck stop over there in Chicago. It kept me busy, 24/7, it seemed like. And then we moved back to Minnesota finally, and I started a trucking company, and we were busy with that. But I still lifted and tried to stay in shape, but I just didn't, get involved with the arm wrestling until my son seen a flyer about a ROTN tournament down in Kansas City, and I think Gary, what was his name?
Gary Roberts from Arm
Gary Roberts. Yes, he put it on, and he said there that they actually have men's classes with age groups now, and that's the only reason it drew me back into the sport, because I thought, well, I could maybe, still compete against my own age guys, so that's why we started getting back into it a little bit.
I remember very, very well the tournament you're talking about, because I remember Gary Roberts putting that out there, and I was a member of Arm TV, and I was watching. Came home, didn't expect that, just checking out the stuff on Arm TV, and up pops that familiar face. I remember he had almost like a Hawaiian shirt on. And you changed, the look of you and so on had changed, but the eyes and everything. I remember thinking, well, god damn, look who's back. And I straight away thought this could get a bit spicy. And the next thing I know, you're right there in the mix with the biggest names in the sport. And let's talk about that, mate. That sort of resurgence. You must, obviously, you've said there you only came back in because of the Masters and Grandmasters classes. And how old would you have been then, Rich? You'd have been what, sort of early 50s? Coming up
50s, mid-50s, I suppose, or early 50s, yeah.
And
there.
You came in there thinking you were just going to compete in the sort of Masters divisions.
Yeah, I guess I spoke wrong. My son seen the tournament in Kansas City for the Nationals.
Oh, kiddo.
That's what had the Masters classes. Well, then we went to that, and I did okay. I can't remember. I think I won my Masters, and I think I went in the Open, but I think I got beat. I think I filed out against somebody. I can't remember who it was in the Open. But then after that, then we thought, well, we'll try that ROTN thing, so then we just went down there and, for a weekend and have fun, So, yeah, I think I pulled Travis. That's the first time.
So you beat him, didn't you, there?
Huh?
Beat him, didn't you?
Yeah, he hit me, and I looked at him, and I thought, well, dude, that's all you got? And bam, I put him down, But I don't know if he was playing with me. Travis, you just never know with Travis. He's pretty smart. So I don't know, if he was giving it 100% or not. I don't know.
Wow. And after that, I suppose, well, I know it set the thing alight again. You know, Lupkes Mania was back, and it was back big time. And we started seeing you in regular outings. You were right there back in the mix. As I said, the Arnold Classic, you showed up there. Tell us about that, mate. Brutal battle that first year there with John and Ron Bath.
That was actually a lot of fun. I came into that tournament pretty much, 100%. I think I still had my stomach hernia, which I was battling a little bit, but otherwise I was really feeling good for that tournament, and nobody expected me, to do much anyway, because we had John Brzenk, who else? Canadian champion Ryan Espy, Don Underwood was in there, Michael Todd was in there. The class was stacked, and
thick. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was.
Harold Owens, I think, was in there as well. I think Harold Owens might have been in that.
Oh yeah,
year. Another solid
anybody
team
that was there was super good. So I thought, well, we'll be here and give it a shot. But yeah, it went good. The last match of the day, the first match I pulled the big Canadian, Rick from Canada. He's about 6'10", huge guy.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah. I pulled him first. I remember that. And I pulled Robbie, the guy from California. From California. Yeah. I pulled him. I actually think I had a buy someplace, which helped me out a lot. And then I ended up pulling John. And it was funny because I thought, well, I got this far, so John's going to beat me. And then we hooked up, and he was, as soon as they said go, he was trying to pull out of my hand. I'm looking at John, and I'm talking to him. I'm like, John, what are you doing? You never slip. What are you doing? It was funny, because I never slip grip. I always have a good grip, and but he wanted to go into the straps, and so I guess we went in the straps. And
Heidebrecht was the guy you were talking about earlier, Rick Heidebrecht, the Canadian Heidebrecht. Mm.
Yeah, he's a very good arm wrestler, and he's a big dude.
Very big, very big guy. But so that battle with John, I remember looking around the crowd, and at that time, most of the comment on the mic was, "Oh, John Brzenk," and you were on him, absolutely on him straight away. After so long out, that's the pinnacle of the sport right there.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of funny is John ended up taking third place because Timmy beat him the next day. Timmy was pulling very well too. John messed up and Timmy took advantage of it. And Timmy's a good puller. You can never underestimate Tim.
Yeah, Breslin's a bad man.
Oh, he is. Tim is funny because his hand is not that big.
No.
But it's super strong. And he's got so much back pressure,
Incredible.
I pulled him, I think it was 2010 at the Nationals in Salt Lake City. And he started doing his back pressure thing. I had beat him once already, and then Tim came back through the losers bracket. And he started doing his back pressure thing, and I'm thinking, you ain't going to back pressure me. So instead of going sideways, I just started back pressuring him, and I ended up tearing my bicep in two against him.
Oh.
I didn't tear the tendon off. I actually tore the muscle in two.
Wow.
We were strapped up, and I felt it pop. It didn't hurt, and I felt him pop, and I kind of looked at it, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird. That's never happened before. So then I went this way, and I took him down, but my elbow came off the pad, so I actually fouled. And then as soon as they unstrapped us, I was like, that's something.
Yeah, something not good there. Yeah.
And we had drove out there. So then, the next morning it was black, probably halfway down my forearm already.
How did you get that repaired?
Well, we drove home and went to a surgeon, and he took a x-ray of it, and he says, I've never seen this before, because he says usually the tendon will tear off either, high or low, and they just repair the tendon. He says, I've never seen the muscle. He said, your bicep looks like the head of a mop. He says, it's just, everything's shredded in there.
Wow.
So he just cut me open, and he went in there and just tried to stitch it together as much as he could. And he says, if you get 40% of your bicep strength back, he says, I think you'd be fortunate, Well,
wow.
Yeah, then after that, I won the Worlds down at Mesquite, and then I pulled at your Arm Wars at,
on the top of the MGM. Absolutely great day.
It was only 40% of a bicep, so.
the biggest Arm Wars shirt we ever had to give out. It was a huge, like a 5XL shirt. Famous, encounter there with Devon Larratt at the top of the MGM.
That's fun.
How did you find Devon, and where did he stack up in your mind, mate, in terms of the names that you've pulled throughout your career?
Well, Devon was super strong. He's just such a smart arm wrestler, He knows the angles, and, I think if we just went side pressure to side pressure, I think I could beat him. But the only person, the person that's impressed me over my whole arm wrestling career for power-wise was Andre Pushkar. I have never felt anything like him. I pulled him over there for, what was it called, PAL?
Yes, the Vendetta.
And I thought, well, I think I can give him a little bit of a run, but the only thing, the day before, I was with Robert Drent with the UAL, and we had a stand in for the UFC thing going on. Yep. So I probably pulled, 100 times that day, spectators, which I don't think it made any difference, because Andre Pushkar I couldn't wiggle the dude. I don't know, I've never felt that helpless against somebody.
I think he was you, Richard, a few years earlier.
Yeah, and I said that to some people, and they said, wait till, because his Lottie was coming up, and they said, wait, Dave Chafee or John's going to beat him. He did the same thing to those guys over there that year. He smashed, Pushkar was on his game. Man, that guy was strong. Wow.
I would have loved to see you and Andre go at it. The guy that was in Escaltuna and Andre at his peak would have been hellfire. What a match.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah.
Oh my God, you were so similar in style. I said in episode 1, that aggressive, sideways, power focused, not a backward step style. It was reminiscent of yourself. I think that Andre was very much you, but in his absolute prime. And obviously when it's a shame that you can't get two great athletes to be at the same time like that,
Yeah,
Would have been remarkable.
Early, man. I think he would have dominated for a while. He was just getting into his peak, don't you?
He was remarkable, mate, and it's a tragic. The circumstances surrounding that thing are horrific. Oleg's father, obviously, the damage it did to Oleg himself, and obviously the loss of the number one heavyweight in the world at the time. Absolute tragedy and a massive, massive loss to the sport. It really is. It's rare in any sport that you see the guy who is, the pinnacle thereabouts, taken from it. It's an enormous shame. Another guy that obviously was involved in that conversation is another man you face in Denis Cyplenkov. And you rocked Denis to his absolute core again when Denis was at his peak at the Arnold Classic, at the absolute prime. And you're in your late 50s.
Yeah, it was fun. Everybody says, well, if you get Denis, don't hook him. Don't. I says, why not? You're there I like to feel the guy's power, and it's fun that, if you get beat, you get beat, but it's, you want to see how strong the guy is. You don't, I always want to beat somebody fair and square. I don't want to have an advantage on grip or anything else. If you can't beat them fair and square, you shouldn't arm wrestle. I don't like that.
But in terms of what you know about yourself, and I know this isn't your way, Richard, I really do, and I hate to put you on the spot like this, but brutally honest, do you think in your day, because I've got my own opinion about this, do you think in your absolute peak, in your prime, you were stronger than when you faced Denis? You believe you were a stronger man earlier in your career?
Oh, yeah, by far. No comparison. Yeah.
That tells, and for anybody watching this at home, this is one of the most modest, humble individuals I've ever met in the sport, and anybody that knows Richard will tell you the same. But I think you'd have fared a lot better too when you were a young man in any of those matches, and it's a tragedy we can't see him. I would have loved to see that, mate. I would have. But you know, the fact that you've got the wins against people like Scott Norton, Gary Goodridge, a winning record on John Brzenk. Obviously a larger man than John, but nevertheless a winning record on John Brzenk. You know, how many times has John actually beaten you, Rich?
Well, let's see. He beat me at the Over the Top, so that would have been the first time. And then after that, I beat him. I think he beat me once at a wrist wrestling thing out on the West Coast. And then, he beat me at a UAL tournament. So maybe 3-4 times.
Mm-hmm. And can you remember how many times you've beaten John?
No, it's probably pretty close to the same. Maybe 6 times. You know, it's not, I don't have that many over him. It's pretty close. Yeah,
so it's nip and tuck.
Yeah, John, you know, people would say, oh, you know, John's coming in light, or, you know, he's weighing heavy. I don't care if John could come in at 100 pounds or he could come in at 300 pounds. The man is brutally strong. The guy was just incredible for strength. I don't care what he weighed.
Yeah, a lot of, and when we've spoken to John himself, I mean, you know, obviously for all the right reasons recognised as the greatest arm wrestler there's ever been, and I tend to agree with that. When John came on the show, he said that he believed that his absolute outright peak may have been around 1985. He seemed to think, you know, early on when he was young, you know, could have been in the very best shape he was ever in. I think probably either then or around 2006, one of those two periods of time. But the big difference there being that he was significantly heavier in 2006, and yet he felt like his ability at the Armwrestling Table back in the mid 80s would have leveled the score, you know, would have made up the difference. And very interesting to hear from yourself and your opinion on that, because it sounds like you tend to agree, mate.
Oh yeah, he pulled that UAL tournament. I can't remember. It was one of the last UAL tournaments, and he pulled Michael Todd in the finals. And I tell you what, John, I've never seen John as strong as that. And when I pulled him too, John just went right through me. I mean, I've never felt him like that. And what he did to Michael Todd was pretty impressive. I mean, he straightened out Michael Todd, and then he pulled him in the hook and put him down. I mean, that takes a lot of man to beat Michael Todd, you know.
Yeah, Michael's remark. How do you rate Michael? What's your opinions of Mike, mate?
Well, he's just got a very unusual way of arm wrestling. You know, he gets down low. I think he's developed that over the years, and he's found a winning combination which works for him, which is, you know, and I guess that's good. I think if I could pull him on a stand-up table, or you know, even back in my prime, if we would stand up, I think I could have gave him a better run maybe, but he's tough to pull. He's
very awkward style. Yeah.
He is, yeah. He's good. I mean, he's one of the best in the world, and he's worked for it. He's worked his butt off. I mean, from when he was in the class at the Arnold when I won it in 2008 till now, I mean, he's improved a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give the man credit. He's worked his ass off to get to where he's at, you know, and nothing was given to him.
No. Yeah, he's a grafter. There's no doubt about it. Michael is.
Yeah.
He's absolute sweat, blood, and tears, isn't he? He's right there.
He's not afraid to get in the gym and work and get stronger and better. You know, I mean, he's earned it. He's put in the time and the pain for it. So he deserves it.
Certainly does, mate. So Richard, looking at sort of bringing things up to the present time, mate, are you still active in the sport? Have you got aspirations still in the sport? Are we going to see you again soon?
Well, I was actually going to participate in the Arnold again this year before it got canceled. I was actually feeling really good. I felt good. My weight training was going good, and I thought maybe I could be the first guy over 60 to win the super heavyweights. I was the first guy to win it over 50, so I figured, well, you know, I don't know who was all going to be there, but I felt pretty good. You know, I was pretty heavy. I was eating a lot of food, and I was probably eating somewhere around 12,000 calories a day there for a while, because I'm up. Well, even now I'm about 153 kilos, you know, so I'm pretty heavy.
But still got abs.
Well, round one.
Hey mate, you're talking to that. I'm all over that, believe me. Oh, absolutely fantastic. So, but it's good to hear that you've still got that. Are we going to see you compete more regularly? Or are you still going to get back out in the circuit? We're going to see a lot of you?
Well, I plan on going to the Worlds down at
in
Florida. You know, I'm qualified for that. So, in fact, we made our hotel reservation and everything already. So, hopefully it'll, you know, go or, you know, be held.
Yeah.
So, I actually plan on going to that. I don't know, you know, of any other tournaments. It seems like everything's so far away, you know, and I'm not crazy about flying because I don't fit in the seats real well. So we usually just drive to everything. I like going to the sit-down nationals, but we went there a couple of years ago, and that's just a long drive. That's about 1,500-mile drive for us, you know.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, but I enjoy the sit-downs.
Yeah, you gotta want to do it when it's 1,500 miles. That's a long way to be in a car, without a shadow of a doubt, mate.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
And do you keep up to speed on the modern day pulling? Do you follow the World Armwrestling League, for example, or the top 8?
You know, I don't. You know, there's a lot of people, especially on the internet now, that arm wrestlers that are having super matches, and I've never even heard of these guys. I don't, you know, and that's not saying they're not good. I guess I haven't kept up with them, you know. This Levin guy, I've heard and read some stuff about him. He looks like a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that'll be something, it'd be interesting. You know, the guy that I would love to see in the W.A.F, I've watched some of their matches. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I would love to see mix up in the super heavyweights,
mm-hmm.
Eric Spotto.
Oh, yeah. What?
Oh, that dude is so strong, and he knows how to arm wrestle.
Yes, he does.
I tell you what, I think the super heavyweights would shake that class up big time. That would be so interesting.
I'd like to see you and Eric go at it. I think that would be an interesting match, you know.
Ooh, I don't know if I want to pull that man or not. That guy is strong. Ooh.
Yeah, he really is. He's abnormally strong, isn't he? An absolute rock.
Guy. I've talked to him several times, and he's fun to visit with, you know. But I think he'd be a good addition to the WAL. I think he'd do very well.
Well, I hope you get your wish, Richard. I hope he does come along. I know they'd love to have him. Somebody with that kind of strength pedigree, from a bench press world record holder, a guy who came from arm wrestling to bench. It'd be great to sort of round that out and get him back to the game of iron arms before he's done. Richard, I'm conscious I'm taking up a lot of your day, mate, but I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time out and for giving us so much fabulous insight on what's been an absolutely remarkable career. And I'm really looking forward to getting this one out there so people can understand and learn more about you, mate. It's been from my perspective, an absolute honour and a pleasure to have you on the show, mate. You've always been a bit of an inspiration and a hero of mine throughout my entire career. The way you conduct yourself both on and off the arm wrestling table, and learned a lot about you in these couple of shows, mate. And just remarkable. I mean, a couple of things you said. The one I'm never going to forget is the fact that throughout that entire career, you never trained table with anyone. That's crazy. I didn't know that, mate. That's incredible. And I shudder to think where you would have got to with that kind of table work. My God. Maybe you need that, Richard. Really, I don't know of anyone else. If people out there, were you watching the show, if you do know of anybody, elite arm wrestler that never trained table, please, put the comments below. Let us know. But I don't know of anybody.
Well, I think when I started back then, there wasn't that many arm wrestlers, and really nobody took it serious because it was more of a barroom thing than it was a legitimate sport, and then it's finally evolved into a good sport where, people can get involved and they have rules and regulations. But back in the day, like I say, there was no straps. It was right hand, single elimination, tournaments were pretty simple.
What was your defining moment, Richard? What was your favourite moment in your whole career? Is there one particular match, one particular moment, one particular experience which stands out?
Well, winning the Worlds, is always special. I mean, that's nice, but I think winning the Arnold is probably my top thing because of the level of people, pulling. I mean, it was all excellent pullers, and the class was stacked, and so, I look back and I think, that's probably, yeah, you can win the Worlds, but you win the Arnold. I mean, there's some pretty tough dudes there, and I think, I kind of think that's probably the best one.
Absolutely fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Leviathan Lupkes, it's been an honour and a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much, and I want to wish you all the best, Shirley, all the best, and all the family. I hope you're all safe and well, mate. For those watching, if this is your first visit to the Supernatural channel, please check out what we do. Check out this guy's first part. It's ridiculous. I'm going to put the link into the description, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more of Richard. We're going to get him on for some of the In the Present shows and things of that nature. It's always fascinating. A humbling experience talking to you, Richard. You're the man, mate. Absolutely the man. And I know people are gonna love it. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Richard Lupkes story. I hope you all enjoyed this, guys, and we will be back soon with more action from the best arm wrestlers in the world. Until that time, take it easy, peeps.